Yo, what's good, Meatheads? Hope you're having an amazing day and welcome to another episode of the Meathead on the Mic podcast. It's your boy, the returning champion, IFBB Pro Matt Vitale, coming at you with another topic. And today, I'll be breaking down the truth about how much you need to weigh in order to look amazing. Okay, so if that's something that you struggle with thinking about or planning towards, if you think that you need to lose X amount of pounds to get this certain physique, or you need to weigh a certain weight to have a certain physique, this is the episode that you want to give me your full, undivided attention on. All right. And just a quick reminder before we dive into today's episode, guys and girls, if you do get value from this podcast or anything that I do, any content that I create, please don't forget to like, share, comment, and review this podcast. It really does go a long way. Again, I wouldn't be able to do this without you guys and girls. I appreciate the fuck out of you. Okay. If you weren't listening, I don't know who would be. All right. So let's break it down. Let's talk about today's topic, which is men only look great at this weight, or the best weight for you if you want to be aesthetic. Okay. So when I go to the gym, I'm going to be honest. Like when I go to the gym, I sometimes hear, yo, Matt, I want to look like, I don't want to look like you, but I want to be 180 pounds. I want to be 190 pounds, all muscle. Like I want to be insert weight here, but I don't want to look like a bodybuilder, or I don't want to be shredded, but I want to have all muscle at that weight. And like the funny thing is, guys, you want to be 180 pounds, and if you're around 5'11" to like 5'9", you want to be 180 pounds, and you want to be lean at 180 pounds. Guys, you have to understand that I myself, when I'm 180 pounds standing at 5'9", I'm fucking shredded. So when it comes to body composition, it's not so linear as like, oh, I want to be this number and at this height and have all the muscle at that number at that height. It doesn't work like that. Okay, because there are so many other things that come into play, so many other variables and factors, like your height, your bone density, your muscle to fat ratio, which is basically your BMR, your BMI. All these things come into play when we are considering how lean you're going to look, how aesthetic you're going to look, or how ripped you might be at a certain weight. Does that make sense? Like this obsession with numbers correlating to a certain physique, it doesn't make sense. And I know you're saying it because it's almost like just, I don't know how to say it. It's like a rule, it's like a guideline in your head. Like maybe you saw fucking Chris Hemsworth, or I don't know, Kurt Angle, some person that looks jacked, and you like the way they look, and you're like, this person is about 150 pounds, or this person's 210 pounds. I want to be 210 pounds, built the exact same way as this person. When in reality, there are way more variables than just the weight that is going to give you the outcome of like what your physique will look like, or your aesthetics. Okay. So this obsession with correlating, numbers, the number on the scale to a certain physique doesn't actually make sense. And like, I understand you're making this a guesstimate. It's not like you are 100% certain that this is even what you think it is. And you don't actually know the weight that you look good at. So you're using something else as a reference. Like, I totally get it. I get it. Okay. And I've been there. All right. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about a couple of variables and just diving into them a little bit so you can get a better understanding as to technically how much you're going to have to weigh in order to look the best for yourself. Again, everybody's body is different. And we all know that, right? Like, we know everybody's body is different. We all react to food differently. We react to different training stimulus, and just many things. There's just too many variables. Everyone is just too special. Okay. And if we truly understand this, then we can also understand that what I'm saying is true. Okay. That there is no number for your specific body that's going to give you that specific look, or in a general sense, there is no number that is going to give you a specific look, because some people are taller, some people are shorter, and so on and so forth. So let's break it down. Actually, speaking of taller and shorter, when it comes to figuring out the number for you, the best weight for you, that's going to help you design a physique that is aesthetic, and captures the goal of what you want to actually achieve with your fitness. All right, so the first thing, guys, and some of you girls even listening to this, the first thing you want to consider when it comes to figuring out sort of like a goal in terms of how much you have to weigh to get your body to look a certain way is, number one, factor in your height. Okay, this one's obvious. Someone who is 200 pounds at 6'5" will most likely not, look super jacked. They'll look quite skinny. 200 pounds at 6'5" is skinny. They might look slender. While someone that weighs the exact same at 200 pounds at 5'3" may look hulked out. And that's just what it is. Like, think of it. 200 pounds at 6'5", 200 pounds at 5'3". The guy that's 5'3" is going to be just built like a brick house, while the 6'5" guy is going to be built like Slenderman. Okay, so weight itself isn't important. Like, it's not the only variable in that sense when it comes to height. Okay? And if you can understand this, you can sort of dismantle the belief that if I get to this certain weight, I will look this certain way, because it doesn't translate like that. And it's not only for height, because let's look at what the weight is. Okay, like, what is this weight even comprised of? I know we're thinking of fat and muscle, but let's take a step back, guys. All right, let's talk about the second thing here, bone density. Okay, bone density plays a humongous factor when we are looking at our weight alone. Like, we all have different bone masses, bone densities. And the tricky thing about this is, we actually can't see how much our bones weigh with the naked eye. Or even if we step on the scale, we don't know how much of that weight comes from our bone density. So you could be heavier than somebody who is more jacked than you, even if you aren't particularly out of shape. Bone density, the weight of your organs, and like the amount of water you can retain. Okay, and we're going to talk about water retention later, but think of it, guys. If we are just looking at the number on the scale, we have to understand that isn't a clear indicator as to, especially when we factor in bone density, as to how you might look at a certain weight. And then, of course, mixing that in with what we just talked about, height, okay, you can understand that a little bit more clearly, or at least I hope you do. Make sense? So the third thing, guys, is this is the obvious one here. This is the one I think most people kind of understand. And this is the muscle to body fat ratio. Okay. This one's notorious. Everyone knows about the muscle to body fat ratio. Everyone's obsessed with body fat percentages and so on and so forth. Like, I believe most people get confused here because, it's like you can achieve, like, in your diet, think of it, like you have two people. They both lose a certain amount of weight and they end up at the same weight. Like, let's say they are 200 pounds, they get to 150 pounds, right? They both lose 50 pounds. Like, you can achieve the same weight as somebody and even be the same height as them. And let's just say you even have the same fucking bone density, just to be nitpicky here, and your organs weigh the same and you retain a similar amount of water, right? And if the other person has more muscle mass, like the ratio of muscle to fat on their body is greater, then they will look, quote unquote, bigger, more aesthetic, more ripped, leaner than you on a muscular level, right? So it's your body composition is a humongous factor when it comes to how you're going to look when you do get leaner. And when it comes to figuring out the best possible weight for you to, I guess, strive for, is going to matter when we are considering how much muscle we have at the starting point. Like, if you at the starting point have more muscle than the other person at the similar starting point, when you both hit the same weight at the end of your journey, you're going to look more jacked, more aesthetic, bigger, more like a bodybuilder or whatever, however you want to, define that. And the reason why is because of muscle, okay? And this isn't necessarily all tied to genetics. Yes, genetics do have a great role in this. They play a great role in this, but you can also leverage this to a certain degree by making sure you're emphasizing building muscle in your cut, in your diet, or in your transformation journey. And how do we do that? Well, focus on getting at least 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So if you're 200 pounds, you're going to get 200 grams of protein, bare minimum, going into your diet, going into your fitness journey. So you can actually retain, if not gain, just a little bit of muscle as you're training hard in the gym, lifting weights, using progressive resistance, and also doing cardio. Does that make sense? Again, guys, the muscle to body fat ratio, even if everything else is the same, is going to be one of the biggest things that we look at and that separate us from having a certain look at even the same height as somebody else and the same bone density as somebody else, as well as the same weight. Okay, so keep that in mind. The number itself isn't everything. Okay, and that also factors into what we said we talk about earlier on in this episode, which was water retention. Like the difference between being lean and being ripped is bleeding the subcutaneous water from underneath your skin to give you that extremely striated vascular look, which can also throw off your perception of how much somebody actually weighs by looking at them, which is also why, like, when you look at bodybuilders at like at the cusp of their success, or like right at the peak, right before they get on stage, right after they get on stage, maybe even a couple of days after they compete, they look way better compared to any other time of the year because of the bled out water and even the fat that's gone, right? It's literally just skin and muscle, and the muscle's got water in it, of course, carbs, glycogen. We know that whole thing. We're not going to dive too deep into that rabbit hole, but with water retention, like when you reduce the amount of water you retain, you look leaner. The skin appears thinner. The vascularity is more visible. The definition, detail, striations of the muscle, it's almost translucent, right? And when you are looking at the weight on the scale, and let's say that you have a similar, let's just knock everything down in order. You have the same height as the person on your right hand side. You got the same bone density. You have the same weight. You lost the same amount of weight in your fitness journey, and you even have the exact same amount of muscle. Okay, but if we consider all those factors, and at the very end of it all, like the last thing here to look at that separates the two of you, like you guys have all these things in common, but the other person still looks more jacked than you. Water retention. Okay, maybe you guys have the same weight, but they're retaining less water. So if they were to retain the same amount of water that you were able to retain, then they would actually look bigger than you, and the weight that they would weigh wouldn't even be the same anymore. They would be heavier than you and be bigger than you, and also carry a lot more muscle, which is, again, muscle to body fat, or muscle to body fat and water ratio, which is going to sort of help you figure out how this person's aesthetics are comprised. Like these are just four variables, right? Height, bone density, muscle to fat ratio, aka body fat percentage, and water retention. Okay, like those are just four, right? And out of those four, like you can see the world of a difference. Okay, and there are probably way like more that I haven't even talked about in this episode. Okay, and I just want you to be aware of it, guys, because just because you look at like any Hollywood star or whoever it might be, magazine cover model, whatever it is, and they say they weigh a certain amount of weight, it doesn't mean that if you diet down to that weight that you are going to look like that. And furthermore, just because you have this guideline of any weight that you want to achieve doesn't even mean that you look like that weight once you achieve, or you'll have that look once you achieve that weight. So let's say you're like 230 pounds and you think that if you lose 50 pounds, you will look exactly like this image in your mind, whatever image that is. I'm here to tell you that it is pretty much guaranteed you won't look like that, because number one, you don't know how you look like at the end of any prep. You've never done this before. So you have no real solid like base of reference to go off of that's actually realistic without making a whole bunch of guesstimations. And I'm not saying this so that you don't shoot for a goal that you think is like attainable. Like I want you to think of shooting for something that's attainable, but I also don't want you to have this vision in your mind where like, oh, when I lose 60 pounds, I'm gonna like my gut's gonna be gone, or my man boobs are gonna be disappeared, melted, love handles absolutely fucking disintegrated. Like, yes, I want you to think like that, but at the same time, I don't want you to almost promise yourself with this false notion mentally that when I lose all this weight or a certain amount of weight, I will lose this feature on my body or I will gain this feature on my body. The only way to truly know it is by looking in the fucking mirror, not the scale, but the mirror, and how your body is responding to the training that you're doing throughout the course of the fitness journey, which honestly, I personally believe should be the rest of your life. If there's no fitness journey, there's no fitness, there's no diet. There's just the way that you eat and the way that you live. And the way that you live should be healthy. And if you are living healthy, you go to the gym and you make sure that you are eating a responsible amount of food, feeding your muscles, and making sure that you are, again, still being functional as well. You can move around, you can be flexible. And if something were to happen to you and your family, you could fucking defend them. Right, guy or girl? You want your body to actually be useful. You don't want to be a prison in your body. You want to be in control of it. Okay, and guys, just to wrap this up, just to give you a full circle, understanding on, like, the way I understand this is, I'll just give you a bit of an example here. Like, these are all true. Everything I said here is true. And when I was, at the last show that I competed at, what was that? So 2021, when I earned my pro card, I was between 174, 177 pounds. And I achieved that weight several times in my life. Like, I've definitely been 174, 177 pounds in my life, because I've been, hanging out at 200 to 212 in between there for a while at the top of my bulk. And just comparing myself, let's go all the way back to like when I was a teenager. And I got out of high school and I passed 174 for the first time. So me passing 174 for the first time versus me dieting all the way down from 200 and whatever it was to 174 pounds are two completely different looks, guys. The look that I achieved at 174 pounds in 2021 versus out of high school are two different looks. Why? Because a fuck ton of muscle was built. And so what does that sort of allude to? That alludes to the third thing that we talked about, the body fat percentage, or the muscle to body fat ratio, which means that because I had a lot more muscle at 174 pounds in 2021 versus when I was, I passed 174 pounds for the first time at, my first bulk or whatever. Like, if we can understand that, then we know for a fact that what I'm talking about is true. And that you can't necessarily marry a weight or look at a weight and say, because I achieved this weight, I will look this way. I don't want you to think like that, because it's not necessarily realistic. Okay? And the only way we can sort of get a real grip on like what it is that we want to look like, or that we think will look like at a certain weight, is to have done it before and use that specific documentation as a reference. Which is why I urge all of you guys to always take progress pictures and log whatever information you've got to know how much you weighed at a certain picture or whatever it is at a certain time, right? So that you can have a solid base of knowledge as to like, okay, well, the last time I did this, I look like that. So the next time I do this, I might look like this. I might look like that based off of what's already been done, the tangible, like recorded, documented evidence. Make sense? Like, and also, I'm gonna repeat this to you guys. The tiny bit of reduced water retention and increased muscle gain shows a huge difference as well. So it's again, it's so subjective. Everything that you want, all the answers that you want, lie in the progress pictures that you didn't take yet and that you need to take, and in the reflection of the mirror as you go along your fitness journey, aka as you live your life. All right. So stop being so obsessed with the scale. It's a great tool. Don't get me wrong. Like, of course, I use the scale to measure my progress. And of course, I got to make weight for whatever class I compete in. It's really important to use a scale, but it isn't everything. It's not the end all be all, right? Your eyes and the mirror and the pictures you take are your best guides if you are looking for a certain number, a certain weight to achieve a certain specific look. Okay, nobody ever looks like the number. We always look like the reflection. Make sense? All right, guys, that's it. That's all. If you liked this episode, please share it out with a friend. Don't forget to like, share, and comment this podcast. Please leave a review. Show your support. It really does go a long way. Again, wouldn't be able to do this without you guys. If you weren't listening, I don't know who would be. And, again, as I said, I just hope I was able to deliver a valuable experience to you guys and girls today. Thank you so much for your precious time and attention. It's been nice chatting. Hope you like what today's topic was about. IFBB Pro, Matt Butale, signing out. Boom. All right, guys. Podcast episode's recorded. Felt good about that one because I know a lot of people really just aren't realistic when it comes to what they expect out of themselves in their fitness journey. And I appreciate all y'all for showing up here. Joseph, what is good? Lizzie, thank you for showing up. Drede, what's up? He says, tell him the truth. I appreciate you, bro. Let's see here. I'm 5'3". How many pounds should I weigh? So for you, Joseph, again, if you listen to this episode carefully, there's no specific number that you should weigh that I could even estimate that you could weigh because of so many variables that I don't know about you. Like I don't know about your bone density. I don't know how much water you are retaining. I don't know about how much muscle you have. I don't know how much fat you have, right? And because I've never seen those things on you. I've never documented those things in the past. And even then, I would look at where you are right now and ask you how much do you currently weigh. There is a guideline as to, according to like BMI, what's a healthy weight and what's overweight and what's obese and so on and so forth. We can use that as a reference to figure out how much you should weigh. However, if we are looking for like an outcome of like an aesthetic outcome, like you want to say lose your stomach or lose your man boobs, then of course BMI alone won't be enough to figure out how much weight actually needs to be dropped to achieve that look. Or if you want to build muscle, BMI is not going to tell you how much muscle you need to build. All right. And so that's where, getting the help of a professional will definitely matter. Okay. So I appreciate you for reaching out. I think that was a really good question, bro. All right. So outside of that, guys, that's it. That's all. We'll be back again tomorrow with another episode of the Meathead on the Mic podcast. Outside of that, guys, thank you so much for your precious time and attention. We'll be chatting very soon. And hope you guys have a kick-ass Monday. Start your week off strong. We'll be back. Cheers.